Welcome everyone to ForceBrands' new leadership series, Born to Lead, where we talk about one challenge, one opportunity, and one great leader. I am so thrilled to be joined today with Duane Primozich. He is the co-founder and managing director of BIGR Ventures. Duane, how are you doing today?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you don't necessarily consider yourself to be a leader, although I think a lot of other people might disagree. Walk us through your background a little bit and some of the experiences that really shaped your leadership style.
I guess I don't consider myself a leader because I don't really know what that means for everybody. It means something different in any given context. But coming up through the natural foods world, I've always been in natural foods. I started with a little co-op out of Iowa, Frontier Natural Products Co-op, 20 years ago or so. And I will say I had a couple of excellent mentors in that very first job. The guy that gave me my first job is a fellow named Steve Hughes, who to this day, I've never really seen a leader quite like him. He marries this tireless work ethic with a really remarkable intellect and sort of supernatural ability to get people to do more than they ever thought they could do. So that was, he has been an inspiration throughout my career. And then in that first job, I reported to a fellow named TJ McIntyre, who ended up being my best friend and a fellow who I've worked with on 6 companies now. But both of those guys really sort of, they just embodied this sort of what seemed to me to be a natural leadership capability. They were always looking for, the next stone to overturn, always believing there was something more we could be doing to further the success of the organization, et cetera. So I would really point to those 2 guys as formative for me as a quote leader. And from there, all 3 of us actually went to Silk Soy Milk. And after that, TJ and I started our own company. And then ultimately ended up at Boulder Brands, where we had 6 businesses in the portfolio, and TJ ran 3 of them and I ran the other 3. So that was sort of my, business management trajectory. At each of those jobs, I held some level of leadership role, I guess, and ultimately in that final role at Boulder Brands, as I said, ended up running 3 businesses.
Tell us more about leaders within your portfolio. How are they leading?
Yeah, they're also honestly great examples of leadership that I learned from as well. I'm often in a position of coaching folks up within our portfolio companies, but I like to say, I learn as much as I teach in the board environment. And that's certainly true from a leadership perspective. We've had the very, very good fortune of having some terrific leaders in the businesses within the portfolio. I won't list them all, but they know who they are. I speak with them on a weekly basis. And now that I'm back in a CEO seat, I really do sort of think back to some of the conversations that I've had with these folks and some of the coaching that I have done. And I'm just trying to reflect that back and learn from that as well.
Let's talk about one of your greatest professional challenges, which I know one of them happened pretty recently. What was it, and how did that shape you as a leader?
Yeah, in fact, not only is it recent, it continues. So back at the beginning of the year, I was asked to actually take over management of one of our portfolio companies. And it was a interesting circumstance. The company had gotten to, some pretty good scale and was ready just for a sort of different skill set to, reach that next stage of growth. But it was odd in the sense that, everybody knew that and knows that I'm serving there in an interim role, which creates a particular set of challenges. It's important. We had some heavy lifting to do very quickly. And I had to sort of establish relationships and trust with the group there in the context of it being a temporary circumstance. That's something that is ongoing. One doesn't just establish trust and move on. It's a continuum of, you're always either building trust or trust is eroding every single day. And so, I try to bring that intention to my work there every day. That is as simple as making sure I know the names of folks. We run 3 shifts and 24 hours a day at this business. So that first shift starts at 6 a.m. So every morning, starts at 4 a.m. Every morning I'm on that production floor somewhere between 6 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. I make sure that I know everybody's name on the floor. And the same goes for the front office. Although, of course, in our current interruption, the front office folks aren't as present as they are usually. But it's really just making sure that folks know that I'm there to help. That my job is to, give them the tools to be successful while also carrying as much water as I can myself.
As you're stepping in as an investor, taking over this founder role as a CEO, how does that change, and how has it changed the culture of the company?
The proper context to put it in is I've had all this experience running businesses, either for myself or working for others. I also, of course, have had experience as an investor and as a board member. And so now coming back into a company leadership position, I do get to take some learnings from both sides of that table. As an investor and as a board member, I'm often in a position of coaching up leaders. And now I'm in a position of kind of putting my money where my mouth is and really trying to, reflect what it is I coach people to do. Key piece that I'm reminded of now that I'm back in a leadership position of an actual business is empathy. It's hard for a board member or an investor or anybody that is not in the business every single day to really understand the dynamics of what it takes to run that business. It is very difficult. You really just have to grind it out every day. And particularly in the CEO role where you're responsible for everybody and everything, ultimately, there's no way to really understand those dynamics from a quarterly board meeting or, monthly financial review or something like that. Being in that office 12 hours a day, every day, I have a much better orientation to, the pain that is felt, as well as, how the wins are felt and what the culture of the business is. Ask a lot of questions so that people, understand that I am interested in what it is they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and to the extent that I can offer my own perspective. But what I really try to do is empower people to do, the best work they can and give them the tools to do so.
I do want to touch upon the current environment and COVID and how your leadership style has changed through COVID. What are some ways you're leading through this crisis?
Yeah, that was that's a good question. It's hard enough to come in as an outsider and turn around a business, and then to do that within the context of a global pandemic adds a whole new layer of complication. We manufacture our own products at this business, so every day I have 60 to 70 production and maintenance and QA. And supply chain folks that are still coming in the office every day. So in a crisis circumstance, particularly one like COVID-19, where the health and safety of our teammates is at risk, we have quickly pivoted to prioritizing the health and safety of everybody that's still coming in every day. That has to be job one, and it has to be plainly evident to the folks that are there that is job one for leadership. And so that's taken on a number of forms. I'd say first and foremost, just constant communication, making sure that folks know that we're taking it as seriously as they are, and that we understand the pain and disruption that they are going through. And then being clear about the protocols that we're putting into place to ensure the health and safety. So a couple of examples are, we immediately put into place unlimited PTO, personal time off, so that folks that were either sick or caring for somebody who was sick or having to take care of children that were no longer at school, so that they had the ability to do that without concern for, losing a job or a wage or anything like that. We also added some incremental resources to address any food scarcity issues amongst the team, any childcare burdens that were incremental and new as a result of schools being closed. And then just constant reminders around increased sanitation protocols, social distancing, obviously, hand washing, just the blocking and tackling, and cover your mouth and nose when you cough or sneeze. All those sorts of things are resident in every one of these communications that we make on multiple times a week.
And I do want to end on a very important question. I know your background, you've worked really hard and you always consider yourself to hustle. And that leadership can be learned through work ethic versus others who learn their leadership through business books or courses, what have you. I have to ask, are some people just born to lead?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe it's a combination. I think there are probably some personality types that are better suited to leadership than not. But I think it also is critically important to have folks to whom you can look to emulate, folks that you have identified as great leaders, and try to tease out the attributes of that leadership that you find worthy of emulation, and see if you can't try to reflect that in your own leadership style. But really it's pretty simple stuff. It's really caring about people and listening to people and understanding, hardships they face, or challenges they may be facing in the day to day. And as I said earlier, how to give them the tools to be successful. So I don't really think of it. I don't think of leadership in the terms that you might read about in a leadership book or something like that. I don't think I've ever read a book on leadership, but just trying to be human. If we can just do that, I think you're halfway there.
Thank you, Duane, so much for joining us. We look forward to following the success of BIGR Ventures and yourself as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate the opportunity.